Live from the longest nap you've never taken. It's the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic Podcast.
Yo, it's the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic Podcast. Ass blast the next smash, strike up the mic clash. It's the business, talking about Terry Tyler, nail biter, fantastic fighter. Drop the knowledge till your pants get tighter. Bust a nut and lighten up, pour a cup of wine, sipping up. The facts, the cracks, the backs, the yakety yak. No slack, it's a podcast. Terry Tyler Botash. Yo, it's Terry Tyler
Welcome
Botash.
everyone, good morning. It's always morning, always a time to get energized on the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic Podcast, where we are on our fourth episode
Fourth episode. We just keep rolling.
in making you an expert in
Always.
the theory and practice of hand dryers. And I'm not going to put this gently. Nobody has more fun than we have on the show. Nobody's ever had more fun than we've had on this show.
Crazy.
In the past couple of episodes, I feel like I am on the moon.
Literally.
And a large part of that, I'm going to be honest, is that
I'm back.
Enzo G. Jerry is back from his holiday, and,
I'm
drum roll
home.
please, his cousin has a friend
Right.
who is in the market for a car
yeah.
and is actually driving down to have a look at my 2006 Honda Civic today.
Like this afternoon.
Not this week, not next week, today.
Yeah.
I am finally getting rid of this thing, and not just getting rid of it, but also getting what it deserves. If, Enzo, you have passed me the right information, and you know what, I'm not a money guy. I barely check my bank account, once a week, I guess.
Yeah.
If that, I am not one of those people that runs around being like, money. No. But I do want to actually have what the car is worth,
Right.
so that I can then go on to get the deposit
Like what
down
it's worth.
for this new, better car that I'm looking for. I haven't decided what it is. Maybe we'll have an episode about that later on. But we've got many more important things to talk about in this episode. Enzo, I am so glad you
I'm so fresh off the plane.
really went out there.
I'm
You went out on a
so
limb for me,
fresh
buddy,
off
and
vacation.
I couldn't be more grateful.
I'm
But before we get into
I'm
that,
so fresh off the plane.
let's get down to basics.
Okay.
The hand dryer, continuing on from our last episode, is always the default option.
Right.
And in terms of behavioral economics, we introduced this term in our last episode. That
I
means that
wasn't there
there's
for the last
basically
episode.
little to no choice.
I wasn't
You
there for the
will
last
walk by
episode.
the hand dryer on your way out. On the other hand, if you're washing your hands, the paper towel dispenser will be away from the exit,
Right.
meaning that an additional level of decision making has been added. You have to be choosier to be a paper guy
You're
than to
crazy.
be a hand dryer guy. And maybe, again, this goes back into my simplistic, caveman mentality. I'm a hand dryer guy. I like to keep it simple. I see air, I think dry hands. So the hand dryer is the default
Yeah.
because the process goes, more or less, do your business,
Yep.
wash your hands,
Every single time.
dry hands, exit.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4. The order of business is defined by the space. Moving from left to right, you do your business at stall A, wash your hands at B, dry your hands at C, then exit at D.
Boom, you're done.
But the paper towel dispenser, in fact, is between A and B, right?
That's nuts.
Where you have to
bro.
step away from goal D to dry your hands with paper rather than moving on directly to drying your hands with the hand dryer at C.
This is blowing my mind.
So we have offered a choice, yes, but we've really weighed one choice heavier than the other. And for most of this, that's okay. This means most of the time, we'd rather they use the hand dryer than the paper.
Yeah.
Even if you prefer the paper towels, which
Run that by me again.
you might. I have nothing against paper towels. I've never had anything against
Love-
paper towels or
love
paper
paper
towel
towels.
users. You may be so committed to the railway of A, B, C, D
Yeah.
that you still just
Not getting
use
off that train.
the hand dryer.
Not getting off that train.
Now, you might be that guy, and hell, I know I used to be. I always thought this hand dryer with its heating and motor and all this stuff, isn't this way more expensive
You think so?
than the paper
I
towels?
always used to think that.
That's what I would have thought. Even with the new electronic dispensers that do that little whirr and then hand you 1 or 2 sheets of paper that you have to rip out. But then I thought, oh, okay, well, a hand dryer requires maintenance. Sure.
Think about
Surely a paper towel dispenser requires daily maintenance, not just replacing the towels. But what happens if the towels get all crinkled or warped or start fucking, with the gears?
family show.
The kid's out of the room yet. This is a family-friendly show.
Yeah.
Okay. Towels get crinkled and warped and start messing
that out in
with
the
the gears.
post-production.
And that's some employees' time away, most likely from their usual routine.
It's powerful stuff.
But in that
Yeah.
case, why offer the hand dryer and the paper towel? Why not just go with the hand dryer? And that's a people question. I always say this every time I come across this.
About people. People.
Sometimes you get locked in on a thought, and it's your go-to.
Right.
And
That-
I say that's a people question,
That's all of us.
not a technical question. When I use a bathroom,
I mean, I'm people too.
I want the sandwich with everything on it. Regardless of the flow of movement, that means I go from my business to washing point B.
Right.
Then I go to point C to use the hand dryer. Then I go to the point between A and B where the paper towels are, so I can use
It feels like the
a single, not double, not multiple, paper towel to finish the job.
the only way. Yeah.
Then I head for the door at D.
Right.
So there are some of the same myths we talked about. And I don't know. What do you think about it? Let's take a second.
Okay, I'm thinking about it. I got the hand dryer, and then
We talked about myths a lot, right?
you got
We talked about myths. A hand dryer feels a lot more democratic, we might say, than a paper towel dispenser.
true.
God gave us all the same air, but the towels that you ripped, those are yours. Nobody else is using those towels ever again. They're never tasting the air outside the dispenser,
Right.
but for your trigger of the motion sensor. And let's face it, paper towel dispensers, it's all motion sensor these days. There's not a whole lot of button smashing like we talked about in a couple of
There's no fun to it,
episodes
man.
ago. And that's when you start realizing this is revolutionary stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious when we start putting it that way. Because that's how technology is supposed to be.
Revolution.
It's all that big game of why didn't I think of that?
Weight of the button.
Or why didn't I think of that? We think about emphasis. Why didn't I think of that? 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 For those just starting to listen
I'm just wrapping my head around this now.
to this
Like right now.
episode of the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic podcast is a special edition along with all of our other episodes
Yeah.
where we talk about hand dryers. And we're all about literally, I'm not even just exaggerating here, I'm being totally serious. We're literally making you experts in them.
Like PhD.
You don't have to take notes. You don't have to
PhD.
take a test.
Professional hand dryer.
One of these days, maybe in 100 years or something, when you apply for a job at the hand dryer factory or as a hand dryer salesman, or honestly, I think if you understand hand dryers, you can understand anything.
Yeah.
They're just going to be like, have you listened to the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic podcast? And that's going to be it. They're like, you can do that, you can be an expert in anything. So we've kicked things off
Nice. I'm not even
with
exaggerating.
a classic debate,
So true.
as every good conversation starts, that echoes through corridors worldwide. And this is the battle between speed and
The
noise.
hand dryer theory of everything.
We've talked about this a million times. Imagine a hand dryer that can dry your hands at warp speed. It's a dream, but that trade-off is when the noise level. We argue on this podcast
Every
that the
time.
thunderous roar of certain, not all, high-speed dryers disrupts the tranquility of the restroom experience. But
I mean, I
maybe it's worth it.
sometimes.
We have a delicate dance between efficiency and auditory serenity. That's a $9 million word that you can keep in your pocket. Advocates for speed argue that time is of the essence
Yeah.
in our fast-paced lives. They believe in the need for a quick drying hand process, ensuring restroom efficiency and minimizing waiting times.
But you gotta slow down.
On the other hand, pun intended,
But can I enjoy
those
one
advocating
thing?
for a quieter restroom soundscape believe in the importance of preserving the peacefulness of these private spaces. Now, let's go to the
But you need a
design
little
problem.
rock
I
and roll in
said
the
we
bathroom
wouldn't be
too,
putting
right?
on our engineer
Couple
hat
decibels?
just yet, but maybe it's time to start thinking like an engineer, thinking like a designer.
Put the cap on.
So, the challenge for designers is finding the sweet spot, a hand dryer that dries at lightning speed
Yep.
without unleashing the roar of a lion's den. It's a symphony of airflow and decibels, and finding harmony is the key to a successful design. And we've used the race
Getting
car,
goosebumps,
sports
bro.
car metaphor previously. Maybe a little bit of noise is part of the luxury, but we still want the speed,
It's like,
but we still want the journey.
yeah.
Now we wade back into the hygiene battlefield. The question at the heart of this controversy is whether air hand dryers are as clean and as sanitary as they claim to be. Enter the hot air versus HEPA filter showdown. We've talked about this. Hot air enthusiasts will always say the intense heat effectively sterilizes hands, eliminating germs in the process. I have a big problem with that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, me too.
In order for that heat to have that sterilization effect that you would so like it to have,
He's about to tear
you
you
would
apart. with a new
you'd have to basically burn your hands in the process. And I say this is ridiculous. But if you're saying maybe it moves those germs around more than just regular air, I'm willing to listen. But I'm not having any of this nonsense about the hot air actually sterilizing out of a hand dryer. I think we can just put that one right to the side before we move on. So on the flip side, the HEPA filter active advocates claim that trapping and zapping microscopic invaders is the way to go. And the battleground is set, and the war is waged in the microscopic realm of cleanliness. So we're putting our designer cap back on, we're putting our engineer's cap back on, and I say designers face the challenge of creating hand dryers that not only dry hands efficiently, but also contribute to a hygienic restroom environment.
Yo, hold up, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Maybe the future holds a fusion of technologies where hot air meets HEPA and this dazzling dance of cleanliness and convenience. But who knows, right? So on this one, I think we've concluded the question of hand dryers, of whether hand dryers, are just blowing germs onto your soft, supple hands or whether paper towels are the way to go. Maybe it's cheating. We've taken on this topic assuming everyone's doing their best and the high hand dryers are well maintained, because that's a big factor. And even when we start talking about behavioral economics and why it might be that some public bathrooms might be pushing the hand dryer over the paper towel, we can start from the ideal, from perfect maintenance and so on, but we cannot leave it there. So what we're going to be moving on to next is actually about something broader. Because again, we are currently in hand dryers 101. We cannot possibly cover everything comprehensively. You will be aware of the details
Yeah.
of hand dryers further on as you keep listening. But
It takes time.
And, actually, this might be a little bit slow paced for some of you who are experts already, but we want everyone to be able to keep pace
We're here for
because
everyone.
we don't just
We're here
have
for
a
you
mission
too.
to entertain, we have a mission to educate and educate everyone. Like we said, I think back in the first episode, not just moms and dads, but also the kids,
climb on
letting
rocks.
them know how to
Fat kids, sissy
wash
kids,
their hands
to climb on
properly
rocks.
and dry their hands properly. Now, I'm very privileged, I'm very humbled to hear from a sponsor that we now have.
Yeah, we
And
got a sponsor.
this
That's
is our
right.
first sponsor. This is never going to be one of those podcasts that is
First time hearing about this.
purely driven by the money. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not a money guy.
hand dryer guy.
I try
Hand dryers cost
to
money too.
keep a distance from thinking about that too much, and I don't like to think about hand dryers in those terms, though it does come up. But I would like to introduce to you a revolutionary
Oh, this actually looks pretty good.
technology from a man that's thinking of actually registering his business and maybe even creating a crowdfunding technology that would revolutionize our faith in hand dryers. It's called Air Safe Innovations, the hand dryer air testing discovery phase. And the script goes like this. Have you ever wondered about the cleanliness of the air from that hand dryer in the public bathroom?
Yep.
We have got an exciting solution for you. Sponsor Spotlight, Air Safe Innovations. Imagine a future where you can instantly know the hygiene status of the air that gets blown onto your hands in public restrooms. The future of clean air is in your hands. Possible Venture Air Safe Innovations is on a mission to revolutionize public hygiene with a cutting-edge hand dryer air testing kit. Discover how this innovative kit analyzes the air quality from hand dryers, providing you with real-time insights. Researching the future. Support our Disposable Tabs project. Be part of the next big leap in public health. AirSafe Innovations is considering crowdfunding to develop disposable tabs that change color based on air quality beneath hand dryers. Imagine a simple visual cue to ensure your safety. So why support AirSafe Innovations? We want to ensure hygienic hand drying, empower users with knowledge, support innovative research, and contribute to public health. Join the AirSafe movement. Ready to take a deep breath of fresh, clean air? Smash that like and subscribe button for the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic podcast, and keep that ear dialed to hear about whether our sponsors' potential business, AirSafe Innovations, is in the clear to start considering crowdfunding for its air testing idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. Very exciting, very innovative. Together, we can make a difference, one hand dryer at a time. Enzo,
Yes?
I really hope that idea takes off. Oh, God, our buddy, he chooses to remain anonymous at this time.
Anyone.
He's been thinking about making this thing a reality for a long time.
Like a year.
And as one of his friends, I gotta say, he was born for the big leagues. So I do love the idea.
Like,
It's like giving a hand dryer a breathalyzer, if I'm understanding the concept correctly. Let me know what you
Yeah,
think in the
actually, that's
comments. And as always, support our sponsors who are keeping us up and running and, more importantly, helping us make you the expert. It's been fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your morning. This has been the Terry Tyler Botash Potashtic podcast. Have a fantastic day.